viewers, my name is Grega Horat and welcome to a quick video update here, in which I really want to bring your attention on ASEAN, on the Elliott wave structure in combination with the intermarket analysis, which means with the correlated market. So actually what I'm tracking here is a potential bearish setup that can occur next week. I'm really interested to look for shorts. Now, if we take a look on this daily chart, firstly, we have seen some nice reaction to the downside, and clearly they were very strong, okay, especially the one from at the start of the year. But the most important is that this rise from March lows was in three waves, so it was actually corrective, which confirms the fact that sooner or later we will see a continuation to the downside. We have already seen some nice reversal lower, so ideally we are now in just small pause before we get a new break to the downside and finally a push beneath 80. Okay, so we have lower highs and lower swing lows, so I think that this trend could remain intact, especially if we also consider the fact that on 1 hour chart here, rise is very slow and very overlapping. Okay, so based on Elliott wave guidelines of corrections, I think that this can be only a counter trend movement. So ideally, despite plenty of overlaps, I still label this as a free wave movement, but with a triangle in a wave B. So we can be now in a final leg of this corrective advance. We have already seen some spike to a new swing highs here, up into first resistance that I identified, and we are now already turning to the downside. But just 1 hour or two of bearish price action is definitely not enough to confirm end of this current corrective rally. So I will be waiting a little bit more. Either we will see a 5-wave fall and then we'll look for potential shorts on pullbacks, or maybe this 5-wave decline will occur from higher prices. Okay, so based on clear Elliott wave patterns on ASEAN, I think that next leg could be to the downside. Okay, and also I want to look at correlated markets. If you trade yen crosses, you want to know where stocks are moving as well. So firstly, let's take a look on the S&P 500. Now, on the monthly chart, still bullish, but I think that the most important is that we have seen a very strong drop in February, okay? And since then we are actually moving in quite slow. Despite higher price action, I still think that we are at the upper side of the range and the next reversal could be lower, okay? So actually what I'm looking at here is that this can be A, B, C in wave B, and the next leg could be very strongly moving to the downside, especially if we also consider that this can be an ending diagonal. Now there is a chance that this ending diagonal is still actually forming and that this wave B will reach higher prices before it sends this market to the downside. But I think that sooner or later stocks really could came to the downside, could came lower. Okay, also important is that this wave C, or this third leg from March lows, was much slower, okay, compared to this first reaction, which was in at the end of February. So actually, instead of increasing bullish momentum, I see decreasing bullish momentum despite higher prices. So to me, this is an evidence that, and based on Elliott wave guidelines, of course, this is an evidence that we may see next very strong reaction with increase in momentum to the downside. Okay, so if we take a look on the 4-hour chart, what I'm looking at here is potential leading the diagonal here for a first leg, and now ideally second leg is trading near resistance, so expecting a reversal lower. Also, as I said, we may see higher prices for wave B, maybe to complete this leading ending diagonal as I showed you here. Okay, maybe we'll see a retest of higher prices and then a reversal to the downside. So what I'm tracking this alternate count as well is actually because in leading diagonals you have overlaps, okay, like here. So I understand that it's not easy to say if this was maybe a complex correction WXY or it's start of a new bearish trend. Okay, so you always have to be aware of different scenarios. At the end of the day, we are still traders. Okay, so we should be able to adjust our views if needed. So actually there is a chance that we'll see a new high and then turn to the downside. But there is one thing why I think that this could be a primary count, the correct one, is because of the Nasdaq 100. As I will show you on the next chart, Nasdaq 100, okay, is actually has been much stronger than the S&P 500 in the last few months, few weeks. Okay, we have seen a new all-time highs, but not on the S&P 500. So if from any reason we see Nasdaq 100 at a potential top, because maybe we have 5 waves down there, then this to me is evidence that even S&P 500 might have completed an uptrend here for a wave P. Okay, that's why I'm looking at this as my primary wave count. So here's Nasdaq 100, what we can see from a new high, market made 5 waves to the downside. More importantly, a reversal higher here appears to be overlapping. Ideally, it's in 3 waves with a flat formation here for wave B. So I'm already tracking these 5 subwaves within wave C. As you know, wave C after free wave with a 3 wave bounce against previous 5 wave cycle can retrace, or in many cases, in ideal scenarios, in textbook stuff, it will retrace back to 61.8%. So this is actually not far away. So watch out for potential failure, push to the upside, and maybe we see evidences of a turn next week to the downside. So this will be a key here for ASEAN. Okay, so that's why I'm watching also Nasdaq 100 very closely as well, with the S&P 500, of course. Moving also into resistance here. So here is also this overlay chart that I want to take a look at, ASEAN versus Nasdaq actually. No, it's versus the S&P 500. So you can see here that from June highs, okay, we have seen a little bit earlier top here on the ASEAN, but then very strong, maybe even 5 wave decline here that can be counted on a line chart. So sometimes line charts will be very helpful because on a line chart you can recognize clear structure because it's calculated in the closing price, of course. And S&P 500 here also moved, as you can see, with a quite impulsive price action. So maybe this was a small 5 wave fall for wave 1, then wave 2 pullback, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5. So now we are in ABC move to the upside, and also ASEAN ABC move to the upside. So next reaction on both can be to the downside. So you can see that markets are in correlations quite nicely. So because of the Nasdaq 100 with a 5 wave drop and now into corrective rise, I think that S&P 500 could also pull prices lower, which means based on correlation with ASEAN, we may also see move to downside on ASEAN, especially if we consider that ASEAN itself has a corrective bounce on the intraday chart as well as on the daily chart. Okay, Teresa, thank you very much for your attention. I hope this helped, and I will watch out this ASEAN very closely, probably for early next week. Bye.